podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Scouser Tommies on Anfield Index. I'm with Jay Reid, and both of us might struggle to speak at points during this podcast because we're recording it, just about 24 hours since Liverpool beat Fulham in what was probably one of the most exciting games, or at least the most exciting endings of this season. And we'll also have a look back at the last game and the Man City game, because we've not done a pod for a little bit. And if you leave it 5 minutes these days in the middle of a season, you miss about 3 games. So we'll talk about them, and we'll also have a look ahead to Sheffield United if we've got time. But I mean, we've just said before we started recording, didn't we? Let's just go with what's fresh. Yesterday's game for us against Fulham, it was started well, 1-0 up. Looked like it was actually me sort of quietly thinking this could be this could be a good game here. We could do well here. Feeling confident. What does this tell us about the Liverpool of this season? And we've just come back from that 4-0 win a few nights earlier. Really felt confident. And then over the next 90 minutes, let's just say that confidence kind of got a bit of a dent. But then right at the end, a reminder that when Liverpool are at the best, yeah, they'll mess things up, but they'll make up for the mess. And, thanks to a last-minute change of plan for yourself, I was able to stand next to you as well in the Kop. First time I've been in the Kop standing up when you're allowed to stand up, if that makes sense, since you had to stand up in the Kop. So great experience for me. Always good to be in the Kop. And I would say yesterday was one of the days where the Kop helped massively. It felt like, I don't know, certainly for the kickoff when it was 3-3, it felt like we just basically, they used to say Liverpool fans, the Kop would suck the ball into the back of the net. I think Liverpool fans blew the ball off their feet into one of our players' paths, and off we went. It was one of those games that you don't forget. 4-3s are always great, although I think I said to you afterwards, they're always great afterwards. When they're actually happening, it's a bit different, isn't it?
Yeah, the coarse tone of my voice, which has got better as the day's gone on, might give an impression. I just actually seen as well on your Twitter that there was a noise warning on your watch. Might have had something to do with the screaming in and around you. But yeah, it was one of them games, and as I said, like driving to the game with me mates, and we were saying, we've got these 3 fixtures now across this week, and we were just hoping, Fulham at home, Sheffield United midweek away, Palace 12:30 obviously away on Saturday afternoon, or Saturday lunchtime, which is odd. It would be nice if we can rack up about 10 to 15 goals, given the calibre, with all due respect, of them teams we're playing, and not really ship too many. Okay, we've got a couple of injuries at the back, added to that with Joel yesterday, which doesn't sound positive. And, our substitute keeper in goal, we're thinking, let's get the goal column up into a good, healthy advantage. And yeah, it all looked like it might have been going to plan early on, but then I would say sloppy would be the word. I think I used several times yesterday while we were stood there watching the game, and there was moments, in the crowd, there was a lot of not groans, but you could people were better than this. You hear people around saying, that's stupid, that's a sloppy mistake, that's a silly error, that's wrong position, that's lazy, all the usual stuff that you do hear. But it was fair and it was warranted. And there was a very small percentage of me that thought, oh, no, we blew this when Fulham go 3-2 up. But then all of a sudden, the crowd rally and they're like, no, we're not having this. Like this season, maybe last year or, the COVID year when there was no fans in and we lost 6 on the spin. I don't think that was Fulham's last win at Anfield. It doesn't really count because it's not a proper game. But it felt as though like everyone around was like, no, we're not standing for this. And we'll sort ourselves out here. And I think Jürgen got it right and wrong in respect to him in terms of his substitutes. He went bold in terms of putting Trent in midfield with Gravenberch in a 2 and went 4-2-3-1 when he brought Gakpo on. But I think we were all stood there saying, like, where's Curtis Jones? And I've not seen anything to the contrary in terms of why he didn't make it on the pitch yesterday, but he played Thursday night and he was on the bench, and I just felt as though we needed his level of control and his on-ball ability to just, grab a hold of the game and just say, let's just be a bit more sensible here, because we were kind of doing the same thing and not really getting any joy. And only when Endo come on for Gravenberch, who didn't have his best game, if we're kind to him, and a fella in the middle of the park who wanted to just ever so slightly slow it down and just be a bit more mature in terms of what he was looking for in his possession and his passing. That we seem to, go again. And yeah, once that third goal went in, I think there's an image, isn't it, of the clock, and it's like 90 seconds between losing 3-2 and winning 4-3. It was pure euphoria, and I think 4-3s, as you say, are very enjoyable afterwards. But when you're going through that, I think that was the full range of emotions yesterday, which nobody probably could have predicted going into that game against Fulham at home on a Sunday afternoon.
No, definitely not. It's not the kind of game where you think you're going to need that kind of ending. But I've said this over and over again, when Liverpool are at the best, it's sometimes how they react to stuff. I'd love it if we went into every game just like not messing about, not having the mistakes, thinking things through a bit better, not leaving ourselves open, not having these lapses of concentration and not needing to recover and not needing to react. But the way we are, we do react. And sometimes, I don't know, sometimes it feels like we play our best football when we're behind, which is just as well, because we've been behind probably, I'm guessing, more than most other teams this season. Certainly we've got this mad record, haven't we, of how many times we've come back from behind to win a game, which says a lot, and I'm glad we can do it. I just think for the sake of our heart rates and things, maybe we didn't do it every game, it'd be a bit better. But it was a game that was just, I don't know, it was a game that I think sometimes we can go into games thinking we've won this, and I don't know if we were doing that. I don't feel we were quite doing that yesterday. We have done that sometimes, we've been guilty of that, but it was as if, I don't know, 1-0, it's sort of, right, we're 1-0 up now. We've not. I just wish we'd say, right, we're 1-0 up now, we could do with it being 2. I wish we would get this gap, because a lot of times in games when we go 1-up, we don't seem to kind of say, right, let's extend this lead, let's make it wider. And I think at times we don't really know what we're doing when we're ahead. It sounds bad to say it, but it feels like we've not really got a great plan on what to do. It was mad how often yesterday how dangerous we looked when we were counter-attacking, and that's not something you always get a chance to do against teams like this. But as dangerous as we looked, it's just that some of those decisions that were being made, I'm always one who thinks, well, you know what, if you're near enough to the goal, have a crack, get it on target, give the goalkeeper something to do. And time and again, we were having soft shots, shots that were going wide, just one pass too many, and all the usual things we've been guilty of, I would say, far too often in the last few years. But there was also a sort of feeling that some of the players that I thought Gravenberch did okay in the week. I think Diaz has been great lately, but I would say maybe those two players weren't at the best. It also felt like a day when we definitely had our reserve keeper out, which I don't want to sort of dig him out too much, but it definitely wasn't the sort of performance we've seen him capable of. And I just find that frustrating when there's so many players that just aren't quite giving it everything. But then I feel bad to even mention that, because there were so many players who gave more than everything. I mean, even if it wasn't for the whole game, Darwin, bless him, he tried. Trent, I think once once he wasn't caught in between two positions, he was amazing, I thought. I think we were saying he's just... I mean, let's talk about this. I just don't think that having Trent as a right back who moves to the centre is working for us, and I'm not even going to necessarily blame Trent for that. We don't do anything about... It's almost as if we just leave that. So he's moved from there now, we've got an empty space. And they were exploiting that yesterday. When I saw the match afterwards on MO, Match of the Day 2, we were definitely being exploited, and there's no feeling that, let's go and fill that space if we need to. I feel like the midfield gets really cluttered. There's almost times when they're in each other's way in midfield, as if there's too many in there. I mean, can we not have a midfielder move out a bit more just to be ready to cover that? Feels like Salah ends up sort of isolated as well, and maybe that's a sign why he's not always having his best game in this kind of lineup. And when Joe Gomez came on later on, we had Trent in the middle. We saw someone who could attack as a fullback without having to worry about maybe being a midfielder now and again. He just, to me, felt like he was just being a fullback. And that's what made the difference. And just quickly as well, before I forget to make this point, on the goal, I was watching the sort of as live replay of the goal from Endo, and then straight into the fourth, and they were just showing replays on the TV of Endo's goal, fair enough. But what you didn't see on that was the fact that Salah set Endo up. As soon as the ball was in the back of the net, Salah was in there picking it up, running back to the halfway line, and all of our players were lined up waiting for kickoff, and the whole the whole ground was on the backs waiting for it to happen. I don't actually remember how they lost the ball, but the TV doesn't really show you the fact that we were saying, as a whole ground, as all 12 of us, if you like, the 11 on the pitch and the 12 man, we were saying, that's it. That 3-3 is not it. We're going to win this. And, the frustration from that then is, why can't we be like that more throughout the game? I mean, you can't be like that all game, but why does it take it to that extent for us to just find the enthusiasm to finish a team off?
I don't want to use this term, but you kind of want to see the old heavy metal football as it used to be labelled. We blew teams away in 25, 30-minute spells. You think of the classic game was Arsenal at home, and we were 4-0 up at half time. Arguably could have been 6 or 7. And there's been so many instances, in the early Klopp era of times when we'd go 1-2-3 and we'd score, within a 15-20-minute spell, and the game was dead. And you kind of want that back, because, the attacking talent that we've got across this team, it's more than capable of doing that on a regular basis. And, we were doing well first half up until, but then we got the goal, and it just felt as though it was a bit laxy-daisy, and, we fell into... let's just, control the game, but no, let's stand on the throat and let's put them to bed nice and early. We're in the time of the year now where games are coming thick and fast, and we fortunately got ourselves next week a free midweek, which we'll get to later on in terms of the Europa League. But we're playing every 3 to 4 days or something like that now, race up until roughly New Year. Because the fixture list TV schedule has been actually kind to us this year in terms of playing Boxing Day and New Year's Day and no game in between. But we need to maximise the opportunity to get games done, killed, and use our squad, use our, rotation, and allow players to stay fresh, allow other players who, you look at the likes of Gakpo, who's just coming back into terms of fitness, but he looked okay on Thursday night against Lask, and he looked good again yesterday, but he needs time on the pitch, he needs minutes. And, when we're sort of saying get on there and try and rescue a game for us, it's not the type of minutes he needs. He needs a bit more steady, build up, and potentially allow him, 65 minutes or something in the game, or, get him a good half hour, 35 minutes off the bench. And, you look all around the team, and, maybe fingers could be pointed in that direction as to why our second choice keeper isn't up to scratch, because he's playing every 2 or 3 weeks or something like that in cup competitions, but that's why he's probably a second choice keeper. I think yesterday he was arguably at fault for a couple of goals, you could say, in terms of maybe positioning and strength. And as much as I do rate Kelleher in certain parts of his game, he just doesn't strike it as a physical, imposing presence. He always looks small in goal. And, you know, you're so used to Alisson, and there's probably maybe an inch, 2 inches in terms of size, in height, but in actual body stature, you know, one looks like a man and one looks like a boy, sadly. And, you know, in this division, he doesn't really fill you with an imposing presence in terms of his stature. And, you know, I think he's 24, 25 years of age now. He may not ever develop that, but, you know, it's just something that doesn't fill you with great confidence when you see him between the sticks, with all due respect to the lad. And yeah, I think at times yesterday, I said to you, like, where I stand behind the goal, it gives you a completely different aspect to the game as to what you see on TV. And I've said this before, and I said this pointed out a moment where I thought, this is where we need Trent as a right back, not Trent in midfield, because there was a huge gaping space there, and it was not only for the attacking purposes but also for the defensive purpose as well. And without Kanate there, we just don't seem to have that level of security that we do in Matip. You know, possibly if Gomez played centre half, he might give you that because he's more athletic than Matip. But when Kanate did come on, and obviously Gomez was, I don't know if he was on at the same time or just after him, but, you know, we did feel a bit more sort of balanced in structure of shape. But yeah, it is an issue. And I think, you know, the clowns that were on Match Today, I think it was Genus and Leon Osman for the football intellect that they are, you know, they asked the question, is it time that Trent goes into midfield? And I think it probably is now a serious question to ask.
Yeah.
Is he going to be a recognised midfielder? And if so, we probably then need to dip into the market and find ourselves a more suitable right back, because Gomez can do a job there. I think he put one very good ball in yesterday and no one was on the end of it, no one gambled. But he's not, you know, what we would call our bread and butter right back, or bread and butter full back in terms of what we used to with Andy Robertson, and we get a sort of different take on it in Costas Tsimikas. But yeah, it's a question only Jurgen can answer himself. And as you said earlier on, in terms of when Trent was bought, right, your midfield now, you got a grip of the game. And, you know, there was essences of, you know, Liverpool captains of years gone by who played centre midfield, who was like, we're not having this, you know, I'm not allowing my team to lose today. And he done everything he could within his power, and it was fitting, you know, how the game was won in that manner. Yeah, them new Predators must be worth the money. That's all I can say.
God, yeah. I mean, Trent's new boots. I mean, he got, well, we can go back. I think the first time he wore them was against City, wasn't it? And he was smart with them then. He was smart. Look, as far as I'm concerned, that first goal was Trent's. I mean, the Grinch must have come out for December and decided to give it as an own goal. Because even looking at the replays, you know, I just don't know why. Why would you go out of your way to call it an own goal? I bet the keeper's made up to have an own goal against his name. He'd much rather just not have that against his name. And it wasn't even as if that keeper was in my fantasy team. I had him on my bench, so made no odds to my fantasy score. I just think, you know, if unless it's an absolutely blatant effort that's gone wrong and you've actually pretty much kicked it deliberately almost into you, instead of kicking it wide, you've kicked it into the back of your own net. You know, any doubt whatsoever, give it to the attacker, because I don't think anyone wants an own goal. But that's just me, and it just feels like the Grinch got involved, because I didn't know, while we were watching the game, I didn't know they'd chalked it off and given it as an OG. Pretty sure it was announced in the ground as Trent's, wasn't it, as well? It was a hell of a goal. And let's face it, all four of them were in different ways. I mean, if you looked at them in isolation, maybe Trent's actual goal was the least good of the four, but it's still an amazing goal. When you put it into context of what it meant, then it's an even better goal still. And on Match of the Day, I was waiting for it on Match of the Day just for like the 5 minutes or whatever we get, plus 5 minutes of the two heroes talking afterwards. They were showing the goals of the month for November, and I just think, God, in a month's time, they're going to be showing the goals of the month for December. I'd be surprised if all of them aren't in there. Well, I won't be surprised. They'll probably put one of them in. But this side is exciting. Another thing I was thinking as well is, in years gone by, you mentioned, without mentioning him by name, we think of Steven Gerrard, and there's too many times in a game where he's been basically pretty much our only good player. Too many times when he was a Liverpool player, or he's been one of a handful, like literally, but not even a handful, maybe 3 or 4 really good players on the pitch, and the rest are just, all due respect, making up the numbers, really. I feel like we've got a lot more really top quality players here. If not now, they're definitely on the way to that. And I just want to see more of that quality coming out. I mean, there's a lot of players in our team now that other top maybe 5 or 6 clubs would love to have in their team. And that's not necessarily been the case down the years. And this is what we've got to take advantage of, I think. Trent's part of a really, really good squad that we actually started off the season not being that happy with. And I still think that's the case. I mean, as the season's gone on, I suppose we were thinking back and thinking we need cover at right back for Trent. We need cover at centre back, or even improvements at centre back. And we saw that. I mean, Matip went off yesterday, and this is one of the things. It's not his fault, but he is a player who doesn't always complete that many games in a row. And then we got Ibu's just coming back from being injured. I'm sure Virgil could do with not playing every game, and I think let's actually go back a game. There's one player that is coming through that could maybe save us some money at centre back. I know he can play right back, but to me, he's more. It's like when we say about Gomez playing right back, he's not an out and out right back. But Quansah, I'm not sure if I'm ready for him to play every Premier League game yet. But just going back to that last game, he was one of the most confident players on the pitch, and I know they weren't the most difficult competition he's going to be up against. I think the only time I could fault him was when I'm guessing he didn't get a shout that there was a player coming towards him. Maybe he did get the shout though, because the last fans were pretty noisy. But you know what? The last fans, they were noisy, but I don't think they were helping the team, because the noise had no relationship to what was going on the pitch. It was the same level, whatever happened, and there was no sort of noise that gave the ref a sort of bit of pressure. There was one point where Trent was taking forever with the throw-in. They were just making the same constant level of noise, and I was sitting pretty close to them. It was funny. It was funny. That thing where they had half of them was sitting down while the other half sang, and then the other half stood up and they swapped places. I reckon that's a good way to save your throat as well. Doing all that singing, you have a little mini, don't you? Like little shift work.
Yeah, I think I made notes on Twitter of how good the European fans have been at Anfield this season, and I think we referenced it last time. These fans of these clubs may not get to Anfield again in their lifetime. Because it's not a competition we want to see ourselves playing in, but we are. And I'll be honest, I've never heard the Laskin Union Saint Gilloise till probably a year or so ago.
No.
And yes, you've heard of Toulouse or whatever, but they've come to Anfield in the numbers. They've really enjoyed themselves. They've been a credit to the clubs. They've treated our city with respect. They've treated Anfield with respect. They come, they have a good time, they sing. They make lots of noise. I even heard that there was some Lask fans at the Marine game on Saturday because they had to run around the city and just wanted to get another game of football in. It's how following your club abroad should be, and I think certain other clubs, especially in England, in that regard, can take note of European fan culture, because we've got all our famous songs and whatever, and there was times moments in the game where it did go a little bit quiet, and you could look around and say, can we get something going? And sometimes, we say it works hand in hand. The fans need the players on the pitch to do something, and the players sometimes need the fans. And when it all works in harmony, yesterday is a classic example of what can actually do with that power. But yeah, they were quality, the last fans, and hopefully we're through to the round of 16 now. We don't face anyone until March. We get another nice set of fans and another European club who enjoy the time at Anfield and, we progress on and get a few more, because that's how we want to see that competition go. But
yeah,
rightly so in your praise of Kwanzaa, that he was probably never on anyone's radar,
No.
6 months ago. He was a kid who, I want to say it was at Bristol Rovers in League One, on loan last season. And
are you that person who has everything? The coolest merch and those must-have fan threads? Well, over at our Anfield Index shop, we've gone that extra mile when it comes to pimping up your Liverpool collection. From our popular range of bespoke design t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies and hats, to our signature edition mugs, prints and coasters, all provided with fast worldwide shipping. We have something for every red. We also stock official LFC merchandise and are licensed with the Premier League and UEFA to sell official iron-on shirt badges and sleeve patches. As a listener to this podcast, you can get 10% off everything with coupon code AIPRO10. Just head over to AnfieldIndex.shop or find us on Etsy by searching for Anfield Index.
He was in the pre-season team in and about, of games, and we've seen this so many times, so many players who you see in pre-season and then you might never see again, or you might see the odd appearance in the Carabao, and then that's it. The careers sort of fade away and they might fall down the league system and, find a career at a decent club, at League One or possibly Championship level. But this lad looks like he's the real deal. And yes, questions were asked of why we didn't sign a centre-half, and maybe Klopp actually knows more than we do, and that's why he's in the highly paid position of Liverpool manager and no one else is. And he's seen what we're now seeing in this lad, and obviously he's not the finished article. There is a lot to learn for him, but at 20 years of age, he's got so much ability, and it'd be very, very far-fetched to anyone to reach the levels of Virgil van Dijk, but he's got a lot of Virgil van Dijk about him in his game, in the way he moves, the way he plays with the ball, his reading of the game. So far, it's very, very Virgil-esque, and he's learning from the master, and it'll do him no harm to do that. And we may not be able to rely on Matip and Konate and to some extent Gomez for full fitness issues, and we are going to need this kid over the course of the season. And the fact that he's come in, dropped in at Newcastle in a very, very hard situation, started the game away at Wolves for his first Premier League start, nothing seemed to faze him, and we could have found ourselves an absolute gem, and the academy's produced something there for us. And if you look at the prices touted around, I think it was 70-80 million for that Levi Colwill at Chelsea, and I think if you put both of the performances of those two players, Colwill and Kwanzaa, side by side, I think you'd be scratching your head as to say, why isn't Kwanzaa the 70-80 million pound player right now?
Yeah, and I just hope we've got the sense to go easy with him. As much as, I think if he was asked if there was a need for him to come in and play every game, he'd be fine, he'd manage. But then there's always that risk there. It kind of goes against you. You burn them out. We were talking about it with Bajcetic last season, where he was getting used a little bit too much. Not because I'm guessing not because we wanted to use him that much, but we kind of had to use him. And we knew that when we used him, he'd put a good shift in. And I'm sure that's the same with Kwanzaa. But what you hope is that we don't have to keep using him, so we can just get him bedded in, get really good performances out of him when we do use him. And then, maybe a lot of the time they'd be sitting watching and learning from the masters. And, he's playing with better players, I'm sure, than Van Dijk was at his age. I think it was Van Dijk. I'm not sure where Van Dijk started out, but I know he was at Celtic at one point, wasn't he? And this is it. And, in training, in games, when you're getting to playing them, you're learning so much. And I'm sure Virgil's teaching him a lot, as well as what the coaches are teaching him. And, as well as what Klopp's teaching him. Klopp's not big on being a player, but it was his position as well, wasn't it? He kind of knows how the position works, even if he wasn't as good as some of the players in front of him now. It's just important that we just bring him in at the right time, the right sort of quantities, if you like, the right amount of games. And last week against Lask, we got that chance to kind of try some of the young lads out a little bit. 4-0. You know, you're gonna make changes. It was interesting actually that last game. I was surprised how strong we started. But then on the other hand, it makes sense in hindsight because we didn't want to mess about. We didn't want to be spending next week putting the best players out next week. We don't even have to play Kelleher next week. Although I think we probably will because I'm pretty sure Adrian isn't in the European squad, from what I can vaguely remember. So we probably will play Kelleher in that game. But this is the thing, we can just put a young side out. And it was good to see Chambers getting minutes, Bradley getting minutes. Maybe he'll get minutes a little bit earlier and we'll get to see what they do. But the downside as opposed to us doing so well in the competition is we're not going to get the chance to try the younger players out quite as much because we won't be in that next round. We won't, you know, whoever we play will not be in that next round. So let's just give it a quick mention. Next time, after this next week, next time maybe in the new year, first big opportunity in the new year to play some younger players. It's got to be the FA Cup, hasn't it? We're playing Arsenal. Third round of the FA Cup at their place. You know, you don't want to go out and lose it, but you've got all these busy fixtures over Christmas, in the run-up to Christmas. It's the time of year when players get injured because you're playing in cold weather and all the rest of it. Seems to be always be more injuries in the winter. And then you get this FA Cup game smack bang in the middle, which will be followed by another one if you win not long after. I think we were talking yesterday. We're not that bothered about it. And there is another competition we're doing okay in domestically. So, you know, let's just sort of, not say sack the FA Cup off, but let's just leave, you know, fourth priority, isn't it?
For me, yes. You know, that it always strikes you out the FA Cup third round of so many teams. What is it, 64 teams or plus, you know, if any replay, but 64 32 ties. How teams seem to get drawn in the draws that they do, you know, and how weird that, you know, we got drew with Arsenal, who happen to be, you know, the top two in the league as it is now, you know, and the randomness of Sunderland getting Newcastle in a derby, or, you know, Man City getting a home tie to Huddersfield Town. You know, it's very, very inconvenient how this happens. But yeah, I think as it currently stands, that's our bottom of our priority list. You know, what is it, the 6 games to win the FA Cup in the third round or something like that. You know, as it stands in terms of the Carabao, we're essentially 3 wins away from winning that, because you get past West Ham just before Christmas. You know, you go to a 2-legged semi, the last year of this, I think it is. But that now, you'd only have to win 1 game. You can draw the other, and then you win the final. Or, you know, as it was proven the case a couple of years ago, you only have to win the final. You just need to win on pens. You know, come full circle back to Queen Kelleher there. But I think, you know, that's a priority for us now. You know, it's a cup very, very realistic that we can win in terms of how that is shaping up. I think Chelsea, Newcastle is one of the other ties. Middlesbrough, Port Vale, and then Everton, Fulham, who on the evidence of yesterday will be given a decent game. And that trophy is available the end of February. You know, you can put it in the cabinet, and then you can get down to the nitty-gritty of the season. At that point, our Europa League campaign won't have even restarted, because I think the first tie is played on the 7th of March. So we could potentially have the Carabao Cup all goes to plan in the cabinet before we've even got to resume European action. Fingers crossed we're still in a very, very positive position in the league. And, you know, the FA Cup, as lovely as it is to win, nostalgia and all that, and a great day out at Wembley, I've had a few of them, fortunately, in my time, and I've seen us win. I've seen us also lose, which is one of those horrible feelings. But if you had to shelve any trophy right now, it's got to be that one. And you know, give someone else a chance. And I think you mentioned before we started recording about this, you know, it also takes away that tagline of the, you know, potential quadruple, you know, the pressure that brings. And yes, we were so close, and people would always say if we went on to win them all, it wouldn't be a proper quadruple because it's not the Champions League. But, you know, you're still backing 4 trophies if we did it. Yeah. But I'm more than happy with getting a Carabao Cup in the cabinet nice and early, and then, you know, focusing on European and domestic action in terms of the league, and just putting the FA Cup to one side for this year.
Yeah, when you talk about draws, I mean, I can't help. I mean, it's stuck in my mind now, and it's stuck in my mind maybe in a bad way as well. Once it's in your head, it doesn't get out, and that's David Moyes' hot balls, because back in 2005 when they got Villarreal in the qualifiers, I mean, they were fuming that if UEFA kind of fully followed precedent in a way, they'd have had to hand the place over to us, but they were not going to let that happen, and in the end, UEFA had to sort of sneak a fifth team in, which was us, wasn't it? And I mean, we had to qualify from basically we had to go out. We played TNS of all things. We were right at the bottom, right at the start of the qualifying, and he was complaining because they got Villarreal, who went on to went all the way to the semis that year. I always think it was the hot balls in the bag that day he goes on about for the draw, which always always springs to mind. But I mean, God, they'd love the chance to have their balls among the hot ones, wouldn't they, right now in the Champions League? But that's another story. Enough about David Moyes' hot balls. It's not going to help anyone to keep hearing that. Yeah, Everton. Anyway, that was when he was with Everton. That's to me that was like classic. That was like peak Everton at the time. We're not really spoken about that today. I'm sure we'll get onto them in a little bit. But yeah, if we can kind of just say, look, put a team out that's worth putting out. Let's, whatever it might be. I mean, use it as an experiment. If that means playing some decent players in different roles, that's fair enough. If that means giving some of the fringe players a chance that maybe don't always get a chance, that's fair enough. If there's players that maybe need the minutes because they're coming back from injury at that point, again, that's fair enough. But yeah, I wouldn't, like yourself, I wouldn't be crying if we're out of it. And I mean, for me, the FA Cup, when you're in it, you're interested, you're watching it. But I'll be honest, most of the time when the FA Cup final's on, I'm out doing something else. I don't even know it's on if we're not in it. I kind of forget that the game's on. It's lost what it used to be. When I was growing up, the FA Cup was like all day, both channels, ITV, BBC One, first thing in the morning. Even the kids' telly would be covering the FA Cup, and then it would be on the whole day. There'd be all kind of, special FA Cup editions of TV shows and all kinds of stuff, and then the game would be on. So even if you weren't involved, if your team wasn't playing, you went down at Wembley, you could sit at home and have a whole day of entertainment, and the whole nation seemed to watch it. I just don't think that happens anymore. It's been reduced in how big it is, and that's just how football is. So quite happy to leave that to one.
No magic left in the cup, I don't think, is there?
No,
as the old saying goes. And yeah, I mean, the kick-off time doesn't help anymore. I think it's 4:30, 5:30, 5 o'clock. I don't know. It changes all the time, doesn't it? Depending on what mood the TV channels are in. But yeah, the nostalgia of the FA Cup, 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon after the season's finished, it's died a death, and try as they may to try and reinvent the magic of the cup. And I think we may have touched on this previously in the past, but make it more appealing in terms of winning the actual thing. Offer up a Champions League place. Give the teams who are going for it real incentive. Because the smaller clubs, quite often just focused on financial reasons for the sad state that the game of football is now. They just want to get to the third round and maybe get one of the big boys. And there's probably a lot of clubs in that draw who were looking at the Arsenal Liverpool side thinking, well, that's a waste, because we would have loved to go to the Emirates or to Anfield or to host one of them clubs at our stadium. You think back to, you mentioned Marine earlier on, I think it was a couple of years ago, Spurs went to Marine on a Friday night, and the clips of them getting changed in a container basically, and the ball going into someone's back garden and whatever. And that's what the FA Cup's about. And it's sort of losing its magic more and more across the years. And I don't think it's ever going to be revitalised, because the Premier League aren't going to want to sacrifice one of their places in the Champions League for the FA to have a Champions League position, because then the EFL will be complaining that their trophy isn't worth the same amount of value. And that's the problem with English football. There's too many companies, corporations, federations, organisations involved, and they all want an even slice of the pie. And the pie is financially laden towards the top end of football, and those at the bottom are literally left battling for the scraps and the crumbs.
I just can't imagine Bill Shankly and Bob Paisley, like when they were managers, the idea of, you had a time machine, you went back to them and said to them, oh yeah, there was this team that was in the FA Cup final and trying to get fourth in the league. So they decided to put a weaker team out for the cup because they really wanted to get fourth in the league. They just look at you like, well, obviously they'd be looking at you mad anyway because you come back in time from a time machine. But they would just be shocked at how it's changed. But we accept it now because obviously top four means Champions League, and as fans, it doesn't mean money. As fans, it means, my God, you're playing in the Champions League. You could be playing like Juve or Barca or Real Madrid, whoever. You could be playing these big teams. You've got these exciting trips abroad and all the rest of it, and maybe even getting all the way to the final and a night that you'll never forget. Obviously, the clubs, it's more like, yeah, well, if we get into that, that's another however many million in guaranteed money, plus however much more we get if we can win things. And I suppose as well, that's the other thing with the league. The higher up the league you finish, it's not just getting in the Champions League places. I think Everton, bring back onto them again with their, they've appealed now their sort of financial fair play punishment. They were talking about the prize money that you get by finishing in a certain way, and I think they thought they'd finish, can't remember if it was 6th or 8th, and they finished just outside the bottom 3, and they lost quite a bit of money because the money you get per place, I'm sure it was 2 million a few years ago per position, so it's probably more than that now. I've not looked for a while. You don't get 2 million for winning the FA Cup. I don't think you don't get much at all. Surprised they don't look for more sponsors. Quick one as well, just while I remember as well. Saw the Man City highlights last night, which we might as well talk about in a sec before we get onto our game against them. One advert that was going around the side was for Etihad, and they were advertising trips to St. Petersburg, and I thought that there were all kinds of sanctions in place for doing anything with Russia. Yeah, basically Etihad are advertising flights to Russia, so I don't know. Surprised that's happened, surprised that's not being picked up. Maybe it's allowed, I don't know. I was just surprised to see it. I wondered if it was like an old advert even, but it's not like there aren't close links between that advertiser and that club, so I'm sure it can't be an old ad. I'm sure they would have known if it was out of date. But that game was obviously the one after ours, and City against Spurs. Exciting game by all accounts. I didn't see it all, obviously.
That was due to the fact that we probably played 120 minutes ourselves.
Yeah. Because added time. Yeah, it used to be 45 minutes a half. We got an extra 15 minutes or something, didn't we, for free? Definitely got some of the best minutes as well. But just at the end of that game, the referee was the same one that we had against Spurs. Now, when it was the Spurs game, the referee supposedly was fine. It wasn't down to him. It was all down to VAR. I'm still not convinced. But anyway, but that referee was at the centre of attention. It feels like, Tottenham are going to be putting requests in for him, aren't they, now after that?
Oh, yeah. Simon Hooper. Yeah, I think he's the name on everyone's lips in terms of officials today. Hails from Swindon, so not too far outside of London. May possibly have some sort of connection to Spurs, but it seemed ever so slightly fishy that he was the guy involved in our game, and let's just say the questionable officiating. And then, that yesterday, that was...
Hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. We don't just have the Anfield Index stuff. We've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own two-footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m, Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. You know Tadiwa, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin DeVries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye.
That was comedy in terms of it couldn't have happened to a nicer club. Involving Pep rolling around on his back like a tortoise that's being flipped onto its back.
Fair play to him for getting up again afterwards, though.
Yeah, he did too bad there. I'm sure if he's pulled on it, he can just get an injection. And then Erling Haaland go full on He-Man, getting his hair out, and I think that isn't there some sort of ban or fine if you are abusive toward referees? I don't know if that's just because if you're being sent off and you're foul and abusive towards them, or whether that's just in general. I think it would be interesting to find out if that's the case. Because the president seems to be set with Virgil van Dijk in his potty mouth. And he was stopped with an extra game ban, weren't he? So let's see how it works out for Mr. Haaland.
And he's on Twitter as well, wasn't it? It wasn't just in the game; it was in Twitter as well. Apparently,
he doesn't use Twitter very often, apparently, and his first post in a while was one of colourful frustration. I think is probably the best way to put it. But I think driving back from Anfield, I think we just about got to the car in time for the kickoff and popped the radio on, and we got the joy of Tottenham taking the lead, and then short-lived. And I managed to make it back and see the second half, and it was such a weird game. And fair play to Tottenham in terms of the amount of injuries they've got to actually get a result at the Etihad, and yes, possibly aided in that decision by the referee. And I think as a football fan, as funny as it is that it happened to City, and as much as a benefit it's given us in terms of position within the league to be now above them, we just want to know why the referee comes to that conclusion. If the referees were transparent, if a statement and an apology doesn't change anything, we all know that. We've been very much on the receiving end of them a couple of times this season. But why can't the referees themselves, or the PGMOL, or even Mr. Webb himself, come out and just say, from the match report, the referee comes to the decision of this or that, and that was why he blew the whistle. Did he think he was offside? Did he not see the player? Did he thought the ball was gone too far and there wasn't actually an advantage there? Like, let's hear the reason to why. And okay, it might not be the correct decision. It probably wasn't, whatever the reason was, but at least we understand why he done it.
Yeah.
Instead of all these questions and adding to the conspiracy and the anger. And I have a small ounce of sympathy with Pep, which, you're not going to get very much from me for that fella, but...
Strange feeling that, isn't it?
he was asked after the game, his thoughts, and whether it was a little moments where he said, I'm not going to do an Arteta here and basically use his rag, but he didn't want to speak about it and just I can't answer this question, move on, next question, sort of thing. Because he knows if he's to speak out of turn, he's going to get a fine. He's going to get, put on a naughty step and told that he shouldn't be doing that by, the PGMOL and other authorities within the game. And it's not right because...
Well, if that's if they're going to say you're going to get fined for saying what you think of the referee, then they need to ban reporters from asking what they think of the referee. Yes, they get asked. They don't just come out with it. They get asked.
Yeah, and you just want answers, and referees are given this ultimate power of anonymity and allowed to do whatever they want, and nothing's given any consequence for it because of their decisions and actions. But if a manager or a player speaks out of turn, and they're slapped down and fined and banned from games or whatever, and it's becoming very sort of dictatorship in terms of the way to run the game, and it actually ruining it. I think we've spoken many a times how bad the refereeing is, and they're allowed to get away with it. But that's the small ounce of sympathy I do have with Pep, because he probably thought that was a win for them, and it would have been massive in terms of the context of the game and what he'd seen over the weekend in results across the league. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of fingers pointing in the direction if City went on to lose the league by a point, heaven forbid. When we think of the Rodri handball at Goodison a couple of years ago as the key moments as to why that weren't flagged up, or there was a situation when we played City, a massive offside or a foul on Sterling or something. I can't remember exactly what one, but huge moments in huge games which could affect the results. It's just sort of pushed under the carpet. But I guess they'd be told it all evens themselves out over the season.
Oh yeah, it all does, doesn't it? I mean, they should do a league table of how things have actually evened out. But then again, we'd all argue about it. I think Mane getting sent off when it wasn't. I mean, if you get sent off for how much you've injured someone, fair enough. But you don't. You get sent off whether it's a foul or not. And I still don't feel Mane should have been sent off that day as much as he did. Make Edison look a bit different for a little bit. Also, just realised as well, having a quick look, that you'll never guess who the referee is for our game in midweek. Yes, it's Mr. Hooper.
I was going to say it's either Mr. Hooper or Mr. Tierney.
Yes, yeah. In fact, who was the fourth official? It was the other man referee. There's so many of them. I'm not narrowing it down, am I? Taylor, I think, was the fourth official for the Spurs game.
Yeah, we had Tierney on VAR yesterday.
It's a surprise.
And Mr. Atwell in charge, who I suppose he was balanced enough in the fact that he just weren't given anything.
Did he bring his cards with him? I mean, did he actually book anyone in the end? No.
I mean, I don't think I'll be posting a Christmas card through his house because you ain't going to get one back, are you? Judging on his performance yesterday. But yeah, I mean, they're all bad, but at least he was consistent enough yesterday to just be bad across the board and not really give anything for anyone and just allow the game to flow as the clamor of pundits or whatever you call them these days want to see, because that's what it used to happen in their day.
But you know what? They do this, like the goalie's taking forever for a goal kick, and it kept happening and happening and happening. And then he holds his arm up as if to say, I'm adding it on, as if he's like, I'm adding it on, which makes you think, all right, so he stopped his watch and he's going to start it again now when they hoof it up. No, he didn't touch his watch again. Every time he sort of said he's adding it on, he wasn't adding it on because he wasn't even looking at his watch. Unless he's just guessing in his own head, keeping account, I'll add 15 seconds on for every one of these or something. Although, to be fair, I'm glad he didn't add any more time on in the end. He wouldn't have ever got home. It was, yeah. But the other thing I was thinking as well, actually, with added time, when it's one team that's time wasting because they're ahead or because they won, even if they want to draw, I'd love it if there was some sort of rule where you could say, right, all the time I've added on for time wasting, I'm not adding on now because you're behind, because that would have got us away a bit sooner. Because I wouldn't say he was nervy at the end, actually, yesterday. It's just more that you see us do these stupid moments and you think, God, there's still stupid moments in this team. And that's a frustration because go back, and it's not as long ago as it feels, but it's just over a week. When we played City, I don't think we played particularly badly. I think in the first half, they were just better than us. And in the second half, we were just better than them. And I just think by the end of it, I thought we're a lot more closely matched than I actually thought we were. And going into that game, I thought it was a tall order for us to come out of it with anything really. I thought this was going to be our reality check.
Yeah, I think we said before, and we would have taken a draw all day at City, and you can put maybe set of results side by side in terms of this year to last year, and you look at that one, you say, right, you're a point up on the board or on the aggregate or whatever, and yeah, I thought we were fair cop for a good point at City. I think we missed a trick in terms of our lineup, and that could just be down to sports scientists and people who know more about the game and the physical condition of players than you or I. But I think we missed a trick in not starting Diaz on the left, because I thought we were short of an outlet, and we were narrow at times, and he didn't really have too much of an effect when he came on. It was quite hard to get into the game, but I always feel as though Diogo Jota is more lethal off the bench, and sadly, we've now lost him due to injury, and we don't naturally know the timeline because Stefan Bacesic was out with a tiny injury, and we've barely seen him. I think we've seen him once against Lask in the opening Europa League game, and he had a tiny injury after that, and he's still nowhere to be seen. And Thiago had a small problem in April, and we're 3 weeks away from Christmas, and we still never see him in a red shirt again. Whether we ever will, who knows? But we were fair value, I thought, for our points at City. Yes, we may have rolled our luck at times, and I think we mentioned yesterday actually while we were at the game is keepers with the first goal when Leno got an injury, because we were at the other end of the stadium, we had no idea what had happened to him, but it looked like he took a bit of a wallop off. Was it Diaz possibly?
It was Diaz.
It was obviously concussion protocol checks, but he had a head bandaged up and whatever, and that led to the huge amounts of injury time in the first half. But we were saying, how protected keepers are, and I think we kind of possibly did get ever so slightly lucky there in terms of the City game and the arm by Akanji on Alisson's shoulder. But yes, you see them giving quite regularly those sorts of fouls, and it was good to come away from that game with the points, but I felt like we possibly could have got more. Yeah. And then when you see games such as Spurs yesterday with the way they attacked on the counter, and you mentioned earlier on how lethal we are on the counter attack against City, it does sort of leave you feeling thinking, what, we could have possibly got a little bit more there. But yeah.
Because they leaked against Chelsea as well, didn't they? They've been leaky this season. Yeah. We've been the least. We've not capitalised on it like the others did.
They conceded 10 goals in 4 league games recently, and we were the only one to, not really capitalised, and given our firepower we should have. But we will take that point. Had we have lost, and given them, the chance to get their noses well and truly in front in the league, and everyone was banging on early into that game about how City were going to equal the record of 25 consecutive home wins in a calendar year, and it was good to just knock that record, off the mantelpiece. And then Spurs have gone and capitalised and also got a point there, and they're playing Aston Villa midweek. No Jack Grealish, conveniently. I wonder how that one occurred, that he got 5 yellows, but no Rodri as well. It's given itself an opportunity for teams this season, and I think, like we've always said, that we don't expect to win the league this season, but we can certainly do well in terms of the challenge, and you never quite know, as long as you're still in there come the latter stages of the season. Funny things can happen in football, and you never quite know where we could finish this season. And long may it continue in terms of riding high at the top end of the table.
Madly enough, it's actually in our hands, but 14 games played. If we won every game from now to the end of the season, which is not going to happen, then obviously we've only got 2 points to make up, and that's against Arsenal. So we could easily overtake them. But goal difference is something that we were just talking beforehand, weren't we, as well? That we're on 18 with Arsenal, 2 points behind them, 18 goal difference. City, point behind us with 20. Newcastle are actually on 18 as well, down in 6th. But the other sort of teams, other than that, in the sort of top half of the table, well, the rest of the table almost, it's 13 for Aston Villa, their goal difference. Tottenham's is 8. Brighton are in 8th place, they've got 4. United are 7th, and they've got -1. So I think goal difference sometimes tells you a bit of a different story about what's going on in the table to the points. Not it doesn't tell you the whole story, but it's almost like a little bit of a backstory, I think, sometimes when you look at goal difference, and it can kind of sort of educate you to maybe what's going to happen as the season goes on, and play, teams have had more of a sort of even matchups against teams than they've had so far. One team, actually, just looking, the worst goal difference, it's not Everton on -5 in the bottom 3, and it's not Burnley just below them on -17. It's Sheffield United on -28. So they're the team we play next. I mean, our goal difference is 18. Theirs is -28. That's quite a bit of a turnaround. They've got 5 points. They've not had a good season, and it sounds like they're going to get a new manager before we play them, which is a shame because, Heckingbottom, playing against a manager called Paul Heckingbottom, we're going to miss that chance now. But I wish they'd just hang on to him another game, really, because I know it's only Sheffield United. We can talk like that, but we can go into games thinking it's only that team and just be awful. We should win, but I think we've got to be on guard, haven't we?
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
Yes, it can be only Luton.
Yes.
Is it Rob Edwards there, fella? Can't remember. I want to say Rob Edwards. Yeah, that's what should be, the old adage of that's your team talk done.
Yeah.
You put on the board Luton away 1-1, only Luton, and underline that and say, right, this is Sheffield United game again, in terms of it's not a game that's just a gimme. You've got to go out there, you've got to earn it, and we allowed ourselves to slump to the level of Luton, and we can't allow that on Wednesday night, I think it is, that we play Sheffield United. And yeah, classic 80s football and Ian Paul Heckingbottom is going to be out the door, and as only Sheffield can probably do. They tend to look back into the past and think that the past is the righteous old ground, Steel City and all that business and everything else that comes with South Yorkshire. Let's go back and get Chris Wilder in, proper man, proper footballing man. But we faced him before. I'm not sure if it was in Klopp's time. I want to say it is, because they were not long back in the Premier League. And we've just got to go there and play our game. Don't allow, Bramall Lane to sort of become a cauldron, and let them get any sort of ounce of belief. If we go there, like we said earlier on, you've got to stand on these teams' throats and you've got to kill them early, and you've got to silence that crowd and ensure that the game can be dead by half time. 60 minutes at a push, and given the fact that we then again have got the early kick-off on Saturday, we've got to use our minds and be able to ensure that players got adequate rest, because yes, it's 2 away trips, so off to Sheffield. I'm not sure whether we'll fly luxury jet or luxury coach, as Man United did on the weekends in Newcastle, for the short journey. Heaven forbid that they might have to travel 2.5 hours on a bus to the two.
It takes 3 hours if you stop at the services, kind of thing, doesn't it? And they don't need to stop at the services. So.
But Sheffield United Wednesday night going to get back early hours at best. Into Thursday morning, recovery session for the lads Thursday. Then probably a small session Friday, then they'd be off down to London Friday afternoon. For the game against Palace. So, that we've got to be smart in terms of how we manage our squad, our fitness. We've got creeping up injuries in terms of, Matip and Jota have added to the list of Robertson and Alisson, and the 2 midfielders of Spanish origin who don't seem to actually exist at the moment, but we don't want to add to that. Given our performances, as you mentioned earlier on against Lask. We've now got a free hit next week in the Europa League for big players to not even make the trip to Belgium. So we've got to manage our squad and get through these next 2 games smart, and then tee ourselves up for the big week coming up just before Christmas. So that should be the key word. You using your intelligence for this game in more ways than one.
I was wondering whether that was why Szoboszlai and McAllister got taken off just after the hour mark, because McAllister played well, but it felt like he was just covering a hell of a lot of ground. The position he's in, he just seemed to be popping the ball over the place, and Balin is out time and again. I think he had a good game, McAllister, but I wondered whether those two maybe went off more than anything, just to sort of give us fresh legs in the game, but to give us, save us some fresh legs for the next game and the next game after that. Sort of rotation in a way where we're thinking 3 games at once, even because we should be, because they're all 3 teams that you could almost say, oh, it's only them, but we've not got to go in them thinking it's only them. My highlight since the last podcast, well, a lot of highlights. Trent's goal, obviously the highlight, but another highlight off the pitch was before we went in to see Lask, just hanging about down by the back of the main stand, and saw Luis Diaz's dad about to go in. So that was nice, because obviously of what's gone on with him, it's just good to see him over here. But to actually see him about to go into the ground with one of his wearing his lad's name and number on the back of his Liverpool shirt as well, that was a nice thing to see. Other highlights the last week, Everton have won, so it's been quiet. It's been a good, I would say, since we last did a show. If we were looking back, just back then, back to that show and thinking what's ahead before we next can do a recording, I'd have taken a point against City, get the Europa League qualification and group topping wrapped up, and a crazy exciting 4-3 against Fulham. I'd have taken that.
The 4-3 against Fulham was a bit of a mad one, but yeah. The 3 points, 4 points. I think I had something the other day. I can't remember the actual podcast it was referenced on, but it was checkpoints in the season. And you sort of look as like the international breaks as sort of checkpoints. And you sort of mark it against right, we've got to that point. Early on in the season, a couple of tough away games. You think of we were disappointed with the points at the bridge, but I think Chelsea is slowly showing signs that they're not actually too bad a team, and they might actually be a decent force in a year or so's time, because they've got a really young squad. But Chelsea away, we always struggle. Going away to Newcastle, getting a late win, considering the force they're becoming as well, and we've had a few real tough away games, and we've come through them very, very well. Obviously the Spurs one was the blot on the copybook, but for unforeseen circumstances and reasons. But we come back after the last international window, and you're like, right, you've got a tough start against City, and then a couple of manageable games in terms of the Europa League, and then Fulham at home, and then you've got these couple of tricky away games. We've managed to buy ourselves, as we said, the free week in the Europa. And then you've got that big week before Christmas, United at home on the Sunday, West Ham at home in the Carabao quarter-final, and then Arsenal for what could potentially be the battle for the top of the tree at Christmas. All at home in that week, and you're thinking, right, if you can get to that week and you will have taken a point from City, fingers crossed, potentially 9 points from Fulham, Sheffield United and Palace, and then you get to that United game and you think, right, we've got United and Arsenal here at home, and a chance to get ourselves in the semi-final of the Carabao. If we can get through that in a very positive outlook of results, then you put yourself at Christmas in a position of absolute joy and strength in terms of a potential semi-final in the Cup, and possibly sitting top of the tree, as long as we do our business. As you say, it's in our hands to some extent, but it literally really is. We can be top at Christmas if we win all our games, and we'd happily take that. I don't think many people would have actually said that was a true possibility, we would have wished and hoped for it like you do on your Christmas list. But it's actually possible now. And then, turn of the year, anything can happen. But we've just got to slowly get along these games and just take the old adage of one game at a time and just be professional and intelligent, I think, is the two words I'll reference a lot over the next week or two in terms of what we've got to do.
Yeah, just quietly go about your business. Well, not that we quietly went about it by the end of the game yesterday. It wasn't quiet. But yeah, quietly go about your business. Just rack up the points one game at a time. Just deal with whatever's in front of you. And, the fact we came back yesterday to me is a good sign for the season. But I'm still not thinking we can win the league. I'm still not thinking we should win the league or we've got an amazing chance of winning the league. We'll want criticism if we don't win the league. I'm thinking, look, the league's a possibility. It is for every team. We're going about things the right way. If we do want to win the league, we're going about it the right way. But, the long way to go. Take each game as it comes and all the other cliches. But I used to like that one yesterday. I might need to see the doctor or something with some tablets or something. No, I was all right. But God, I would probably need some earplugs though. But that to me, this season has been much better so far than I thought. And as you say, when we're talking about checkpoints, yeah, Christmas is the one. Let's see where we're at. Loads of home games as well. And you know what? That gives us more chance for some more renditions that, could be a little bit louder, I think, of our version of "Oh Come All Ye Faithful," because years and years and years ago, that song got played at Anfield, got sung by the fans at Anfield because we did say, come and adore this team. We do adore them. And I think there were times yesterday when I just got little memories back to the olden days and the really, really good Liverpool teams. And I think we've got that in us. And if it's not this season, we're not far off. And it's just good to see everyone behind the team like we were yesterday. Let's see where we are. See if we're still as positive as this next time we do a show. Hopefully we will be because, well, we've only got to play those teams just as long as we don't go into them thinking it's only those teams. Thanks to Jay. Thanks to you for listening. That is it for us for this week. We're going to go and rest our voices now. But for now, see you soon.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at anfieldindex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.